Western culture has undergone a radical transformation, shifting from an Apollonian worldview, characterized by order, structure, and religious tradition, to a Dionysian paradigm, where instinct, indulgence, and chaos dominate. This transition didn't happen overnight. It was the result of centuries of philosophical shifts, social engineering, and the gradual erosion of traditional Christian values. The West, once defined by its moral clarity and disciplined societal structures, has embraced a culture of consumerism, moral relativism, and unrestrained hedonism. The collapse of hierarchical and religious structures has left a void that modern ideologies, liberalism, atheism, and hyper-individualism, have failed to fill. These frameworks promised freedom and progress, but instead, they have fostered isolation, confusion, and existential despair. Without a sacred order, without a sense of divine purpose, people fall in a mob consciousness, swayed by the latest social trends, unable to anchor themselves in anything meaningful. This is why many are waking up to the reality that the rejection of tradition didn't lead to enlightenment. It led to cultural decay. What we are witnessing is not just a shift in values, but a complete restructuring of power dynamics. Elites and technocrats have seized control over narratives, economies, and belief systems, replacing traditional sources of authority, churches, families, and strong communities, with corporate-driven ideology, mass media conditioning, and political manipulation. The result? A population that is more divided, more disconnected, and more susceptible to external control than ever before. This isn't just about political ideologies or cultural movements. It's about human nature. Societies function best when they align with natural human instincts, a structured hierarchy, clear moral codes, and communal identity. Without these, people turn to cheap distractions, nihilism, and self-destructive behaviors in an attempt to fill the void. Look around. Western nations are seeing record levels of depression, addiction, and social fragmentation. This is not a coincidence. It is the inevitable result of a society untethered from its sacred rituals and guiding principles. The question is, where does this lead? When a civilization rejects its spiritual and philosophical roots, it becomes vulnerable to external control, collapse, and eventual replacement. Nietzsche warned of this over a century ago when he declared the death of God, but few understood what he truly meant. If the foundation of Western morality is gone, what takes its place? And more importantly, who benefits from this shift? That's exactly where we turn next. Chapter 1. The Death of God and Its Consequences. When Nietzsche declared God is dead, he wasn't celebrating, he was warning. The West didn't just lose faith in a deity. It lost its moral compass, its sacred foundation, and the very structure that held civilization together. Christianity had provided a clear hierarchy of values, giving people a sense of meaning, responsibility, and duty. But once that structure was abandoned, what remained? A vacuum, one that modern liberalism, atheism, and materialism have failed to fill. Modern society attempted to replace divine morality with secular ethics, but the results have been catastrophic. Without an objective framework, morality became subjective, malleable, adaptable, and easily manipulated. People no longer ask, what is right, but instead, what benefits me the most? Hedonism, self-indulgence, and relativism have replaced duty, sacrifice, and transcendence. We were told that without God, humanity would create a more rational, just, and enlightened world. Instead, we got cultural fragmentation, meaninglessness, and existential despair. This isn't just an abstract philosophical problem. It has real-world consequences. Look at the rise in mental illness, addiction, and social disconnection. People who once found comfort in religion and tradition now seek fulfillment through consumerism, digital escapism, and political tribalism. Modern atheism, despite claiming to be rational and progressive, has left people feeling more lost than ever before. Without sacred rituals, strong communities, and moral absolutes, people drift directionless, in a society that tells them that nothing truly matters. And what happens when a civilization embraces nihilism? It collapses. Throughout history, civilizations that abandoned their spiritual and moral foundations eventually crumbled, not due to external enemies, but because they lost the will to fight for something greater than themselves. Today's Western nations are on a similar trajectory, weakened by their own moral decay, unable to defend their traditions, and blind to the consequences of their own self-destruction. So, where does this road lead? Nietzsche had an answer: the rise of the last man. A society that, having abandoned struggle, discipline, and higher ideals, descends into passivity, comfort, and submission. And once a population reaches that point, it becomes ripe for control. This is where the elites step in, ready to reshape society in their own image, one of compliance, automation, and absolute domination. Chapter 2. The Concept of the Last Man. Nietzsche's last man is not a tyrant, a warrior, or a conqueror. He is the embodiment of modern decadence, passivity, and submission. He is the man who chooses comfort over struggle, pleasure over duty, and safety over greatness. He does not seek to create, to transcend, or to fight for something greater. He simply wants to exist in a world that caters to his desires without asking anything of him. And what's worse, Western society has been engineered to produce this exact type of individual. The last man is the inevitable result of a civilization that has abandoned its higher purpose. Without the spiritual guidance of Christianity, the discipline of tradition, or the challenge of struggle, modern people have become docile consumers, easily manipulated, endlessly entertained, and completely dependent on external systems to provide meaning. The promise of freedom has been replaced by the reality of submission, not to kings or gods, but to corporations, mass media, and technological overlords. The most dangerous aspect of the last man is that he believes himself to be free. He laughs at history, mocks tradition, and dismisses struggle as unnecessary in a world where everything is designed for convenience. He is plugged into entertainment, social validation, and instant gratification, never realizing that he has lost the ability to think independently, to challenge authority, or to resist control. He may have access to information, but he lacks wisdom. He may believe in progress, but he has no sense of direction. This descent into passivity and comfort paves the way for the rise of technological and bureaucratic control. Once people stop questioning, stop fighting, and stop striving, they become nothing more than numbers in a system, easily categorized, easily managed, and easily replaced. Governments and elites no longer need to oppress through force when they can simply offer comfort in exchange for submission. A man who fears losing his luxuries, his entertainment, and his sense of security will never rise up against those who control him. But here's the catch: this system cannot last forever. The moment a civilization abandons struggle, discipline, and transcendence, it begins to decay. History has shown that empires built on strength collapse when they fall into decadence, and the modern world is no different. The last man cannot survive in a world that demands resilience, courage, and sacrifice. This means that something, or someone, will inevitably replace him. And that's where the true battle begins. Because as the masses become weaker, the elites become stronger, and the tool they will use to cement their control? Technology. Chapter 3. Technology and Transhumanism. Technology was once seen as a tool for liberation, a way for humans to overcome limitations and improve their quality of life. But in the hands of powerful elites, it has become something else entirely, a means of control, manipulation, and even replacement of humanity itself. We are entering an era where artificial intelligence, automation, and transhumanist ideology are not just shaping our future, but redefining what it means to be human. And most people don't even realize it's happening. The push toward transhumanism is often framed as progress, a vision where humans merge with machines, enhance their abilities through biotech, and evolve beyond biological limitations. But let's be honest, this isn't about empowerment. It's about control. The same elites who weakened traditional institutions, promoted mass consumerism, and turned people into passive digital slaves are now pushing the next phase. A world where individuals become fully integrated into a technological grid, monitored, and dependent on AI-driven systems for survival. Think about it. First, they made people spiritually weak by killing God. Then, they made them intellectually weak by destroying tradition and rewriting history. Now, they are making them biologically weak by introducing dependency on technology. The rise of automation and AI is not just eliminating jobs, it's eliminating the need for independent human thought. In a world where algorithms dictate what you see, what you think, and even how you feel, free will is becoming a relic of the past. This transformation is happening at an alarming pace. Social credit systems, mass surveillance, biometric tracking, AI-driven governance. These are no longer dystopian fantasies. They are being implemented right now. Governments and corporations are openly discussing universal basic income as a way to pacify the unemployed masses once AI replaces their labor. But here's the reality. A population that is completely dependent on government-issued digital currency, food, and resources is not free. It is enslaved. And this is exactly where the elites want society to be. But not everyone will submit. There will always be those who reject this synthetic future and seek to restore what was lost: spirituality, personal sovereignty, and resistance to control. The battle isn't just against technology. It's against the forces that want to turn humans into programmable entities, stripped of identity, culture, and higher purpose. And this brings us to the solution: awakening. A return to spiritual and philosophical wisdom that can counteract this dystopian future. But do modern people even have the strength to fight back? Chapter 4: Spiritual and Philosophical Awakening. The modern world is designed to keep people weak, distracted, and disconnected from their true potential. It feeds them entertainment instead of wisdom, comfort instead of discipline, and instant gratification instead of purpose. But here's the truth. No civilization has ever survived without a strong spiritual foundation. The rise of technological control, transhumanist ideologies, and cultural decay is not just a coincidence. It's what happens when a society abandons its connection to something higher. Religion and philosophy once provided a moral structure that grounded individuals in something greater than themselves. Christianity, for example, built the moral framework of Western civilization, while ancient philosophy challenged people to seek wisdom, master their emotions, and live with purpose. But once these traditions were discarded in favor of atheism, consumerism, and empty progressivism, people lost their spiritual immunity. And now, they're wondering why they feel lost, anxious, and powerless. This is why so many people today are experiencing a spiritual reawakening. They are realizing that modernity has stripped them of their depth and meaning. They are returning to sacred rituals, rediscovering traditional wisdom, and rejecting the idea that all answers can be found in technology and material wealth. The human soul is not meant to be a cog in a machine. It is meant to seek transcendence, to struggle for higher truths, and to stand against forces that try to suppress it. But the path to spiritual sovereignty is not easy. It requires rejecting the comforts of a world designed to pacify, questioning everything society has told you, and embracing the challenge of self-liberation. It means reading the works of Nietzsche, Jung, and ancient religious texts, not just to consume knowledge, but to transform yourself. It means resisting the urge to conform to a broken system and instead forging your own path. And it means recognizing that the real war isn't just political, economic, or technological. It's spiritual. So what's the next step? Once an individual awakens to the manipulation, the control systems, and the false narratives that have shaped modern life, how do they break free? The answer is resistance. Not just political resistance, but a deep, personal rebellion against everything that seeks to weaken, enslave, or disconnect them from their highest self. The future does not belong to those who comply. It belongs to those who reclaim their power. And that is exactly what we must explore next. Chapter 5: Resistance and the Path to Liberation. Waking up to the truth is one thing. Acting on it is another. The world is structured to keep individuals passive, compliant, and obedient. From childhood, people are conditioned to accept authority without question, to prioritize comfort over challenge, and to sacrifice their sovereignty in exchange for security. But history has proven that freedom is never given, it is taken, and those who refuse to fight for it will inevitably be ruled by those who do. True resistance isn't just about rejecting the system, it's about building a stronger alternative. That means reclaiming discipline, knowledge, and self-sufficiency. It means breaking free from the distractions of consumer culture and focusing on real skills, mental, physical, and spiritual. It means forming communities of like-minded individuals who reject the empty promises of modernity and choose to live with purpose. The strongest empires weren't built by passive spectators, but by those who were willing to endure struggle, sacrifice, and discomfort in pursuit of something greater. Throughout history, there have always been those who refused to kneel. The warrior monks of medieval Europe, the nomadic tribes of Central Asia, the samurai of Japan, and even the desert ascetics of early Christianity. All of them understood that true strength comes from discipline, faith, and an unshakable sense of purpose. Today, the battlefield has changed, but the war remains the same. The struggle between control and freedom, between submission and resistance, between weakness and strength. This is why reclaiming masculinity, traditional values, and personal sovereignty is so crucial. The system thrives when people are weak, fragmented, and addicted to temporary pleasures. But when individuals reject dependency, build strong families, cultivate discipline, and dedicate themselves to something greater than personal gratification, they become uncontrollable. That is the real revolution. Not riots, not protests, but the quiet, disciplined defiance of those who refuse to be slaves. But this kind of resistance requires knowledge, wisdom, and a deep understanding of the forces at play. The elites do not rule by force alone. They rule through psychological manipulation, narrative control, and cultural engineering. To truly break free, one must first see through the illusions. And that brings us to the final battle, the war for the human mind, the human soul, and the future of civilization itself. Chapter 6: Cultural and Societal Manipulation. The greatest weapon of the elites is not brute force, it's manipulation. Throughout history, rulers have understood that controlling people's thoughts is far more effective than controlling their bodies. Today, this is done through media, entertainment, education, and digital algorithms that shape public perception without people even realizing it. The modern individual believes he is free, yet his opinions, desires, and even emotions are constantly influenced by forces he does not see. Think about it. Why do people chase meaningless trends, obsess over celebrities, or believe every manufactured outrage pushed by the media? It's not accidental. It's a carefully designed system of distraction, division, and obedience. Western culture, once built on philosophical depth and religious conviction, has been reduced to mindless consumerism, shallow entertainment, and endless political infighting. The goal? To weaken people's ability to think critically, to make them forget their history, and to keep them too busy with petty distractions to ever challenge the system. But this control goes deeper than just entertainment. Modern democracy, capitalism, and technological governance all operate under the same principle. Present the illusion of choice while ensuring that no real power ever leaves the hands of the elite. People think they are voting, debating, and shaping their world, but in reality, the game is rigged. The same corporations, financial institutions, and ideological forces control both sides, ensuring that the masses remain trapped in a cycle of controlled opposition. And then there's social conditioning. From childhood, people are taught what to believe, what to desire, and what is socially acceptable. Those who question the system are ridiculed, ostracized, or labeled as dangerous. This is why modern culture is aggressively hostile toward traditional values, masculinity, and self-reliance. An independent, disciplined individual cannot be easily controlled. A man who builds his own wealth, understands his history, and rejects manufactured narratives is a threat. And that is exactly why they want to erase such men from existence. But not everyone is asleep. Some are awakening to the depth of this manipulation and seeking a path beyond the illusion. And that is where philosophy comes in. The pursuit of truth, meaning, and resistance against the forces that seek to enslave the human mind. In the end, the war is not just for power, but for the soul of civilization itself. And this is where we turn to the final and most important realization: the necessity of philosophical reflection and the search for higher meaning. Chapter 7: Philosophical and Existential Reflection. At the heart of all this, the cultural decay, the societal manipulation, the rise of elite control, lies a deeper question: what does it mean to live with purpose? If modern life is nothing but a series of distractions, if people are conditioned to obey without questioning, then what is the alternative? The answer isn't found in politics, wealth, or even resistance alone. It's found in the search for meaning, the pursuit of wisdom, and the rejection of illusions. Nietzsche warned that once God was removed from the center of civilization, humanity would have to create its own values. But what happened instead? Without a sacred foundation, the modern world replaced divine order with chaos. Consumerism, digital addiction, identity crises. These are the symptoms of a civilization that has lost its connection to something greater. The solution isn't just to fight against the system, but to transcend it, to reclaim the inner fire that once drove men to build, explore, and seek the divine. Jung understood this. His entire philosophy was about individuation, the process of integrating the unconscious, facing the shadow, and forging oneself into something whole. The world wants weak, fragmented, and confused individuals. But the man who truly knows himself, who has confronted his own darkness, who has grounded himself in philosophy, spirituality, and wisdom, is unbreakable. This is why elite-controlled culture despises thinkers, warriors, and spiritual seekers, because they are immune to manipulation. The Dionysian forces of chaos have taken control of Western culture, stripping it of its Apollonian structure, its discipline, and its higher calling. But this cycle is not new. Empires rise and fall, philosophies are abandoned and rediscovered, civilizations collapse and are rebuilt. The difference is this: will you be among the passive masses who are swept away by the tide, or will you be among those who stand firm, who seek truth, who take back control of their own destiny? The time for passivity is over. The battle for the future of civilization is not just political or technological, it is existential. The return to spiritual wisdom, philosophical clarity, and individual strength is the only path forward. The choice is simple: live as a servant in a decaying world, or become something greater. And for those who choose the latter, the real journey is only beginning. Conclusion: will you take action? So now you know. Carl Jung saw the collapse of Western civilization coming long before it began. He understood that when a society loses its connection to higher values, personal sovereignty, and spiritual wisdom, it becomes weak, fragmented, and easy to control. The war we're facing today is not just political or economic. It's psychological, philosophical, and spiritual. And the real question is, what are you going to do about it? It's easy to ignore the truth, to stay plugged into the distractions, the entertainment, the artificial sense of purpose that modern culture feeds you. But deep down, you already feel it. Something is wrong. The question is, will you continue living in denial, or will you take action? Because the reality is, no one is coming to save you. The only way forward is to rebuild yourself from the inside out, to reclaim your own power, your own identity, and your own future. So tell me, do you think Jung was right? Is the West on the verge of total collapse? Or is there still time to reverse the decline? Have you personally felt the effects of modern decay? And if so, what have you done to fight back? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear from those who are awake to what's happening. If you're ready to go deeper into these ideas, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. There's much more to uncover. And if you're watching this, it means you're already seeking the truth. Keep going. This is just the beginning.